When we take our eyes off of Jesus, that's when the worries of the world, that's when the cares of the world, that's when the storms that we're in the middle of become so big and so real, and we start to sink. This is Matthew 14, starting in verse 26. It says, "But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, 'It is a ghost.' And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, 'Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid.' And Peter answered him, 'Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water.' He said, 'Come.' So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, 'Lord, save me.' Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, 'Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?'" This is so real. This is so true. And this can be applied to my own life. This can be applied to our lives. When we take our eyes off of Jesus, when we begin to doubt, we start to sink. We start to sink in our worries, in our fears, in our circumstances, in the storms, in the battles that we're going through. As soon as we take our eyes off of him, that's when the cares and the worries of the world start to creep in so fast. And right now I'm preaching to myself. When I take my eyes off of him, even for a split second, that's when I start to go underwater. That's when I start to drown. And I have to reach out again and say, "Lord, save me. Lord, come and grab me." And he says, "Why did you doubt?" This is my message to myself. Why am I doubting? Why do I doubt that he will take care of me, that he will give me strength to walk on water, to do what he has for me? When Jesus says that I'm going to do something, I'll do it. But it's when I start to look around and say, "Lord, I can't handle this. This is too hard for me. I've never been out here before. This is unknown territory for me." When I start to say those things and think those ways, that's when I start to sink. But when I trust him and when I look to him and when I follow just his voice and just look to him, that's when amazing things happen. That's when I walk as the person and the man that God created me to be. Not to live in fear, not to live in anxiety, not to let any of that stuff weigh me down and cause me to sink below. God has called us up and to walk in faith and to come out to him and walk in new territories and do things that we didn't think we could do. The truth is we can't do that without him. But when he calls us out to those things, we have to walk out there in faith. And we trust that he is the one that's giving us the power and the strength to walk above the storms, to go through the battles, to go through the hardship and the pain. Because he has something bigger. He has something better. He has a new way for us. A way of faith and trust in him. Focused and centered on him, seeking first him and his kingdom. When we do that, we don't sink. We don't worry about what's going on around us. But it's as soon as we take our eyes off of him, as soon as we take our eyes off the king, that's when we start to sink. That's when the worries start to weigh us down. Keep your eyes on Jesus. That's the only way. That's the only way that we can get through these storms and these battles. Take heart. It is I. Do not be afraid. That's what Jesus said. And that's what I'm going to live by. Do not be afraid. When he calls us out, we go. We don't hesitate. We step out of the boat into the unknown. But he's got us. So don't doubt, don't worry, don't fear. Because when God opens a door, nothing can close that door. When God calls you to something, nothing can get in the way of that thing.